Hello and welcome to another episode of SEO Presso. And today I'm speaking with Marcus Tober. And Marcus started SEO already in 2004. He was working for a huge price comparison website here in Germany called Idealo. He was the founder of eCards, which he sold the majority of shares to Rocket Internet in 2007. And he's the founder and chief innovation officer at Searchmetrics, which you've built now for over 15 years to the number one go-to search and content platform. Hello, Marcus.
Hey Björn, nice to see you, man.
You already started 2004 working for a huge price comparison website. It's called Idealo. How was SEO looking like back then in 2004?
I mean, actually, I started in 2000. And the reason I was starting at Idealo is because of a lot of stuff I've already seen before. I was interviewing with Martin Sinner, which was the CEO and founder of Idealo. And internet SEO in these days was very much like fighting against spam, fighting against competitors who were super aggressive. And Martin was impressed by a lot of, let's say, automatic website optimization stuff I've built. I studied computer science. So what I've actually done is I used my programming skills and built a lot of tools. And this is how I started at Idealo. I continued working on tools. I worked on a crawler to crawl other price comparison websites because in 2004, actually, it was super important to have the best prices and the best merchants. And Idealo was only number 5 in the time when I started in 2004. Now Idealo is the biggest one, the best one, but it wasn't the case in 2004. So SEO was one of the most important things. And Martin, it is also a true story. He didn't want to spend any money in PPC. He said PPC makes sense, but he didn't want to spend any coin on PPC. So SEO was the most important channel. That's why I learned so much in the 1.5 years I was at Idealo. So that was a pretty good foundation for Searchmetrics then.
If you would describe how SEO developed since 2004 until today, what would you say?
So in 2004, I think we had the first Florida update. So it means when I started at Idealo, it was very normal to build a lot of links from networks. So you looked at like cheap links from forums, from blog posts, from a lot of different link exchange networks, right? So you had a friend who had a website and you gave him a link and he gave you a link back and you just shared links, stuff like this. And then maybe he had another friend and they had another friend. And I was also, at this time, I developed a tool set called Link Vendor. On Link Vendor, you had a lot of like tools like backlink analysis and stuff like this. So it was quite easy to analyze websites and where they got links from. So you sent them an email and you maybe made an offer like, I give you 50 euros and you just give me a link and stuff like this. And in 2004, end of 2004, the first Florida update wiped out most of the pages that use these systems. So it means SEO significantly changed in 2004. And then starting 2005, this is where I realized, oh my God, when you actually lose everything that you have built before and you lose the traffic and then everything, then it's a gamble. But what normally you had before that was called Google Dance. As you maybe remember, the Google Dance was always at the end of every month where Google kind of like was calculating the page rank. And at the end of every month, you had a lot of like rankings change. And at the beginning of the next month, the rankings were more or less fixed. It didn't change much. I don't know. When have you started in SEO? When was that?
The first time I started really professional, like having the first job was in 2010 at Briefgold. I don't know if you remember Briefgold.
Of course, I know Briefgold. Yeah, they were really good in link building. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, my job actually was fun. So I came to work. And my job actually was first thing I do is checking bad comments in Google because, you send scrape gold there and they not even give you half of what it's worth. So it's a lot of, scam actually. And so people were really angry and were writing bad reviews. And my job was to look those reviews up and then put a positive review against it so that it exchanged the review in the rankings. And other than that, I was working a lot with Scrapebox to, automatically set links and forums and social bookmarks. That was my job. It catched me actually because I saw, hey, you do stuff today and tomorrow you immediately see a result. And I thought, wow, that's super awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, that's true. But that's not the case anymore. You started before the first Panda came. So that's also like a significant change for you. like before and after Panda, I mean, a lot of stuff has really changed for us in SEO.
I think the first really update which quite hurt me or us as a company was Penguin, because we did a lot of link building as well. It hit us quite hard. So that was the first time I realized, okay, if Google decides something differently, then you're actually done. Better be good.
Definitely, yeah, it's true. And I think that changed also many people's perception about SEO, that SEO is actually more or less bad. Maybe you remember this too, because SEO, before all these like bigger updates like Panda and Penguin, SEO was magic. After these updates, that's my feeling, that people try to put SEO in this area where it's more like when you do SEO, it's shady because all these updates will hit you. And that's absolutely not the case, because when you do SEO properly, you build a better website, a better product, faster website, a better user experience. So there's so many positive aspects of SEO. That's what most people actually don't really know.
With the development of SEO and the development of Google, especially nowadays, what I actually see, or this is my opinion, is that SEO is not link building anymore. It's not technical stuff anymore. It's rather an interdisciplinary field where, we have to impact, product, we have to impact brand, we have to impact content, stuff like that. And you actually pointed it out quite well in your recent presentation, where you said that SEOs need to act more like a product manager. Can you explain a bit why you think this is?
There are always two worlds and two sides of the medal. Side is the strategic one. I mean, if you think as an SEO, as a product manager, has my product good market fit? That means also for which keywords should I be found and why? Do I have a good price? Is my content fitting the consumer needs? Right? If someone comes to my page, is my page good enough that actually someone wants to buy or wants to read or consume this stuff? When you think from this perspective, then you build a better website and a better user experience. But the other side of the medal is still the tactical stuff. And that's the funny thing. So I made another presentation in this year where I revealed that link building is still a big thing, where with also cheap links looking like 10 years ago, but new links, it's crazy. In link directories, and stuff like this, and magazines, like well-known magazines selling links and stuff like this, it is still working. And this tactical side of the whole thing is still important. So when you as an SEO just say, create a great website that's fast, that's lean, it has the best content in the world, and you will rank. That's not true. So you definitely have to make sure that you get links that for some reason, Google still relies on the PageRank formula, and the backbone is links. So you still have to make sure that you get links. And you can do it with a lot of branding stuff, right? I mean, if you make a TV ad, I don't know, if you have that much money, you will get a lot of attention and you will get leads. That's great. But if you don't have the budget for TV campaigns or whatever, you need to make stuff that bring you links, right? I mean, not cheap links like the ones we saw before Penguin, like you built, I guess, right? For Brief Gold and stuff like this, Björn. But you need to get good, relevant links. And this is something that many people forget when they talk about SEO now, because it's, SEO is only strategic, is only great content. Wrong. And this is where I always kind of laugh about the Google people on Twitter when they make a tweet, right? Like, you just need great content and everything else will come. No, that's not the case, guys. But that's a lot of useless quotes they have. But I think we know it better. But you need to have both the strategic part and the tactical part, and then eventually you will be successful.
You pointed it out in the presentation as well, that SEOs actually stopped talking about link building also in conferences, right?
Yes.
And from my perspective, link building was never dead, And I remember one guy, he tweeted once, I thought it was really funny. He tweeted, "Hey, good that you all stop link building now, because then when I continue doing it, it works and I don't have competition anymore."
That's
but
true, yeah.
If you look at EAT, especially, so when Google really looks at expertise, authority, and trust, from my perspective, link building takes a huge part here as well, because based on the links you are collecting, Google is actually evaluating your expertise and your authority and your trust, because if you get really good links from relevant websites which are trustworthy, which write about your product or which write about your expertise in a good way, in a qualitative way, this also counts into these EAT factors quite heavily.
That's a pretty good point, right? I mean, if you have two comparable products, if you are a doctor and you write content, you have another doctor who who writes content. I mean, both studied medicine. Both contents are heavily equal. But if you get more respected links, like from, I don't know, medical sources, then of course you are better in Google's eyes, 100%. It's like quoting in the science space, right? If you are a scientist and you get more quotes, of course you are the more respected scientist. Definitely.
We are now at a time, especially here in Germany, where in 2018, so 2 years ago, very big fashion brands called Zalando, they laid off 200 marketing people. Among those marketing people, there were also SEOs. And the reason for this was because Zalando said that we will now work with marketing automation. Marcus, why was this a bad idea?
I think in the short term, it was a good idea because they immediately had cost savings. And I think for many things, marketing automation might work pretty well. But if you look at the long-term effect, definitely Zalando lost a lot of visibility and very likely creativity because marketing automation can't, take or kind of replace the human creativity. But when we come to SEO, the thing is that if you have a website, you need to take care about your website. Like some content needs to be refreshed. The internal linking needs to be depending on your product portfolio or trends or like just needs to be reviewed constantly because you have something like crawl equity. So you need to take away pages from Google to make more room and give the crawler more focus on what's still there and stuff like this. And in that moment when the SEO people were gone at Zalando over the 2 years that it's now ago, they had a constant decrease in visibility and competitors like About You, they hired a lot of SEO people, where Zalando fired people, and they almost reached the level of Zalando in terms of visibility over the last 2 years, and they were super far away 2 years ago. So, I mean, if it financially was a good decision maybe 2 years ago, maybe it's not anymore because of this constant decline. Not a lot, but you have a constant decline. And I only looked at Zalando.de. I mean, the SEOs they also took care about the other entities and friends and the other countries. So I can really imagine that they lost a couple 100,000 just from clicks that are not there anymore from organic search. But they made a decision, and that's, something they have to deal with. And their competitors like About You, they are happy, obviously. And I know the head of SEO, Pascal Landau, he's a brilliant guy, a good product guy, actually. He is actually more a product guy than a typical SEO guy. He hired also smart people, and they do well. So now everybody needs to evaluate for themselves. Was it a good idea or wasn't it? And there are not that many companies who actually did what Zalando did. So maybe it's an example of what not to do.
Especially because Zalando, from my perspective, is a brand which was purely built in the first instance on SEO and really strong brand building through TV advertising. Those two pillars actually built a success for Zalando.
There's one little it's just 10 seconds, but there's one little story. In the beginning, Zalando was so incredibly successful in SEO that at one point, Alexander Samwer, he was the Samwer guy behind the Zalando. He called, and I think Robert Gens, the founder of Zalando, Andre Alper and me, because Zalando was ranking for Adidas shoes on number 1 and Adidas only number 2. And they were so scared about the incredible success. They wanted to know if that can hurt them in the long run. I'm not kidding. Zalando was ranking for brand terms like Adidas shoes better than Adidas.
And this is actually a pretty bad sign for a brand when you have plenty of money which you don't invest into your search rankings, right? Yes. This is actually a very good example. But nowadays it's different because Google actually tries to give those brands really trust, and even if they don't really do much stuff, they always will rank better, or sometimes will rank better for their branded terms.
And sometimes it makes sense because the user experience on the pages like Zalando About You is way better than the user experience on the brand page. So I really like Adidas. Maybe that's a bad example because they have a great shop and a great website, but there are many other brand pages who have a very bad user experience. And I rather go to a reseller of these brand stuff than to the brand itself.
So Zalando is actually a good bridge to my next question, because as I said, Zalando's success was mainly built on brand and SEO. And I remember Zalando were quite strict and quite heavy with category text. And I recently spoke to Monica Fazit. You still remember?
Yeah,
she was
Moni from Wayfair.
Yeah, and I talked to her, and they also have a lot of category text at the bottom of the pages. So these typical SEO texts, which probably nobody reads. But she told me that by accident they removed a lot of category text on their website, and they lost rankings quite heavily. We had a discussion because I asked her if it still works, and she just told me the story, which is a clear sign that it still works, even though it's probably nobody's reading it. It's not really user friendly or not really useful. It's still category texts are still for Google.
So, I mean, you've mentioned one. So Moni is a former Searchmetrics person, so that's important. So from Searchmetrics, we brought a lot of people into the world to do a lot of good stuff, not only at Wayfair, where Moni is, but in other companies too. So the thing is, what I really believe, and let's just stick with Wayfair quickly, the category texts they have produced are actually lovely. You can read them and you will like them immediately. So that's why there are two different things. One thing is the search engine is a machine that needs to evaluate what is this page about, what are you selling, and what is around it. So because when you only have products and these products are constantly changing, the products, they can't distinguish for a search engine in a good way what is this page about. Of course, when you have sneaker shoes or Wayfair have, I don't know, couches and stuff like this, a search engine is, let's say, intelligent enough to understand it's about couches. But then you need some static text to make a search engine understand what is this about, especially also for long term. Now we come to the second part. When you have text, and you should have text, then the text should be readable. It should be good text. Because at some point, imagine you have a user and he figures out, oh, there's text actually. Oh, what is this about? And if this is stupid, cheap SEO text for 10 cents a word, the user is going to be very disappointed. And that also might lead that the quality rater at some point is very disappointed. So that's why if you have supporting text, and that's my personal belief, you should have supporting text that make the user happy when he discovers it, especially when sometimes you have products that need more explanation. So for example, I do know a lot of category text. In that moment is helpful when you have more need for information, maybe not in the beginning. So at Wayfair, when I go to the page where you have couches, I don't need a text in that moment. But while I continue browsing through that page, there are a lot of different couch systems, like with L shape and U shape and whatever shape, then text becomes handy and useful. That's why I really believe you need to have text to make a search engine better understand what is this page about, especially when it comes to a page where you have a constant changing product portfolio. Actually, eBay had a pretty good initiative where they created content pages where they had structured content underneath very important search phrases. So for example, they created pages for stuff like Samsung Galaxy S8 or Samsung Galaxy S10 because there are so many different products. They built these, I think they call it topic page, and they had handwritten, good structured content underneath, where I believe that was really helpful, but that's not scalable for an eBay, of course. They have millions of products and potential categories. So for them, it was not very helpful. But for me, it was a good example because these pages used to rank pretty good. That text can be incredibly supportive. And that's why SEO has much more for these category texts than just having it. And I also see a lot of shops using even in the div. When you look at the source code, Björn, you know what I mean? You see SEO footer text. SEO footer text. Like,
true.
Okay, great. You can't make it more obvious for a search engine.
Exactly. And I think this is the perfect example, back to your point, why SEOs need to think more like a product manager. Because if you think about it, a product owner in e-commerce, you have product owners who are, responsible maybe for the homepage or for category or product listing pages. So you're responsible for the appearance of the site. You are responsible for content. You're responsible to rank, to get good search engine rankings for those sites. And if you think like a product manager, then you think, how can you integrate the content in that way that is very useful for the page, but doesn't, destroy the page or make it ugly. The content needs to be have the same actually value as a picture or as a filter or stuff like that. If you think about this way, then you actually do it quite good, do it quite well, and will be successful, I guess. If you're looking now into the future, and there's a lot happening in a very short frequency at Google. If you're looking now at the time period of 5 years, what would you say SEO is responsible for in future?
And definitely SEO becomes more interesting, but harder at the same time. So through the current situation with the COVID-19 crisis, we will see an even bigger demand for stuff online. So retail is important, but I do believe more and more people will avoid going to their local shop. They will try to order stuff online. That's definitely a trend, and I don't believe this is going to stop. So that means the competitive field online is going to increase because there are more and more companies selling stuff, and it doesn't matter often if it's from the local shop or if it's just a global company who can deliver in a day, like an Amazon and something like this. So I think the competition is going to increase. And at the same time, the search demand at Google is not incredibly increasing, Björn, but Google needs to make more money. That also means for SEO, it's becoming more problematic to be seen with just regular organic rankings. So we really have to think about how can we stick out, that the traffic that's still left for organic search is the one that we get, while we fight against more companies, more competitors. So that maybe that SEO need to become more creative, need to become more aware of how can we deal with the situation that we don't just optimize the website for text and photos, that we think about all the different things we can do. I mean, of course, we both know there are so many SERP integrations and you can do a lot, but most SEOs, they just don't optimize for this. So I think the creativity and what we need to do to get the traffic, and the traffic organic is decreasing over time because Google needs to grow. Search demand is not growing, but Google grows. So what happens? Google puts in more of their own products and more AdWords. So that's why we need to be more cautious. And I believe SEO is not going to disappear, but it's going to be more competitive. That's what I really do believe.
One last question, which I often see a picture of you and Matt Cutts sitting on the back seat in a car. What's the story behind it?
It's a funny story. I was flying to Seattle to the SMX Advanced. That was the SEO conference where Matt Cutts was almost every year. And that was the only one because it was a very special conference organized by Danny Sullivan and Danny and Matt. They had a pretty good relationship. So I was in a plane with Matt Cutts. I saw him sitting there and I was sitting more or less behind him. And I said, I have to ask him if he wants to share a taxi with me to the venue. And when we came out of the plane, it was also the time when we just released our latest ranking factor study. I think it was in 2015 or something like this. And I asked him, hey, Matt, you want to share a taxi with me? And he knew me and he knew Searchmetrics. And he said, it's a great company, good stuff, guys. And said, let's share a cab. And then he said, but only if I'm allowed to pay. It's like, let's go. And we had a really good cab ride. You know, we talked about the industry, but he was also a little bit emotional. And then we talked about his new hobby, biking, so cycling. So in the US, cycling is a sport. In Germany, it's, going from A to B. In the US, it's when you cycle, then you are a sports guy. And we talked about his new hobby and stuff like this. And funny thing is, 1 week after we had the cab ride, he announced that he's leaving Google for a long-term sabbatical, and he actually never came back. And now I also understand why he was more or less emotional at the cab ride, because I mean he already made the decision. And that was a pretty cool experience, really.
Thank you very much, Marcus. It was really interesting. I think it's my new favorite SEO Presso episode. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. We see us next week on SEO Presso. Ciao. Ciao, Marcus.
Ciao, Björn.